If you sell a house and make money, the IRS wants a cut. That's what most people believe. But quietly, legally, every year wealthy investors sell millions of dollars in real estate and pay little to nothing in taxes. No offshore accounts, no fake losses, no breaking the law. So how does that actually work? Because here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. The tax code wasn't written just to collect money. It was written to incentivize behavior. And if you understand the incentives, you can play a very different game. Most people think taxes are unavoidable. You sell an asset, you make a profit, you pay capital gains. End of story. But that's only true if you sell clean, meaning you take cash, walk away, and trigger a taxable event. Wealthy investors rarely do that. Instead, they structure transactions so that on paper, a taxable event never happens at all, and that changes everything. Here's the key idea that unlocks this entire topic. Taxes are triggered by events, not by wealth itself. Selling an asset for cash is a taxable event. Borrowing against an asset is not. Exchanging one asset for another often isn't either. The wealthy don't obsess over how much tax do I owe this year. They ask a better question. How do I avoid triggering the event in the first place? That question is where strategy begins. The most well-known example of this is the 1031 exchange. A 1031 exchange allows an investor to sell an investment property and reinvest the proceeds into another like-kind property without paying capital gains tax at the time of sale. The money never touches their bank account. They don't pocket the cash. They roll it forward. The tax isn't forgiven, it's deferred. Investors can sell one property and buy several. They can sell several and consolidate into one larger asset. They can keep upgrading into bigger properties over decades. But the rules are strict. Replacement properties must be identified quickly. The transaction must close within a fixed window, and a qualified intermediary must handle the funds. Break the rules, and the tax bill comes due immediately. When done correctly, though, this can be repeated again and again, sometimes for an entire lifetime. And here's the part most people miss. If the investor dies while still holding the property, their heirs receive it with a stepped-up cost basis. That means the IRS resets the property's value to current market prices. All those deferred capital gains, they disappear. At this point, a lot of people get angry. They call it a loophole. They say it shouldn't exist. They assume it's cheating. But it isn't. It's intentional. The government wants capital to stay invested. It wants housing built. It wants economic activity instead of cash sitting idle. So it rewards people who keep their money working. Now we get to the strategy that quietly explains almost everything wealthy families do with assets. It's often called buy, borrow, die. First, you buy appreciating assets like real estate. Then, instead of selling them, you borrow against them. And finally, you pass them on. Loans are not income. Borrowed money is not taxable. So instead of selling a property and triggering capital gains, investors refinance or open lines of credit. They live on borrowed money while the asset continues to grow. When they pass away, the IRS resets the cost basis again. Decades of appreciation vanish from the tax record. No sale, no taxable event, no capital gains tax. This isn't aggressive, it's not secret, it's simply how the rules work.
Another powerful piece of the puzzle is depreciation. The IRS allows real estate investors to deduct the wear and tear of a building, even if that building is actually increasing in value. On paper, the property is losing value. In real life, it may be generating positive cash flow. Advanced investors take this further using cost segregation. They break a building into components, appliances, flooring, wiring, landscaping, and depreciate those faster than the structure itself. This front-loads deductions. The result is what's often called a paper loss. You collect rent, you show little or no taxable income, and you legally reduce your tax bill, sometimes dramatically. In certain situations, those losses can even offset other types of income. Normally, rental losses are considered passive, but there are exceptions. Short-term rentals, like vacation properties, can sometimes be treated as active businesses if structured correctly. That means depreciation losses may offset W-2 or business income. There's also real estate professional status, which allows qualifying investors to use real estate losses against active income, but only if they meet strict time and participation requirements. This is why you'll occasionally hear about high-earning professionals with surprisingly low tax bills. They didn't hide income, they reclassified it. Some investors go even further by giving assets away before selling them. Donating appreciated real estate to charity can eliminate capital gains entirely while generating a large charitable deduction. Others use charitable trusts. These allow a property to be sold tax-free inside the trust, provide income to the donor over time, and eventually benefit a charitable cause. This isn't about avoiding responsibility. It's about choosing where money goes, to the IRS or to something you believe in. And many of these same principles apply to stocks. Long-term capital gains are taxed lower than income. Borrowing against a portfolio avoids selling. Holding assets until death can erase gains entirely. Where assets are held, taxable versus tax-advantaged accounts, matters more than most people realize. The wealthy don't chase returns alone. They chase after-tax returns. Here's the real takeaway. The rich don't pay less in taxes because they're smarter. They pay less because they plan before the sale, not after. They understand that taxes punish transactions, not wealth, that deferral often beats deduction, and that the most expensive mistake is selling without a plan. You don't need millions of dollars to think this way, but you do need to stop asking, how much tax will I owe? And start asking, how do I structure this so I don't trigger it at all? Because the difference between being taxed like the middle class and taxed like the wealthy is rarely income, it's strategy. If this changed how you think about money, subscribe, because this is the game most people never learn. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.